Everybody has this misconception that you have to be some amazing caller. And I will be the first to tell you, even Timmy last week, he'd be like, I'll be the first to tell you, like, I'm not a good caller. I'm not going to enter in any kind of competition to kill turkey or to call turkeys and try to win it. Like, I'm a turkey killer, like not a turkey caller. And man, I am not good. Like, I'm good enough. It's like I can do what I hear in the woods. I can try to mimic it with my voice. I'm not good with the mouth call. I'm okay with the pot call. I'm okay with the box call. But you hear some of these other guys, and you compare them. So you got the world champions to some of your average turkey hunters. World champions a 10 out of 10. Some of these average turkey hunter guys, they're like a 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10. Like they could probably win a lot of local competitions. And then you have me, who's like maybe a 5 out of 10, but I'm tagging out every single year that I want to. And it has a lot to do with woodsmanship versus the calling, like what we talked about, being patient, not over calling, letting them communicate in their natural environment. If you're shifting around in the tree, standing up every 20 minutes, or cutting hunts short because you're uncomfortable, your saddle is costing you opportunities. That's why many hunters choose buzzard roost saddles. They're 100% USA made and built for serious time in the tree. The new Reloaded saddle features a proprietary design that distributes weight evenly and reduces pressure points, making short sits comfortable and all-day rut hunts realistic. Comfort equals patience. Patience is what kills mature bucks. If you want to try one in person, come by our store, Revive Outdoors in Trussville, Alabama. We've got a full tree demo set up so you can clip in and you can feel the difference before you buy. Get comfortable, stay longer, hunt smarter. Buzzard Roost Saddles. If you're missing turkeys or barely putting pellets in the kill zone, it's probably not your aim. It's your choke and shell combo. Not all choke tubes perform the same, and not every shot shell pairs well with your specific shotgun. The wrong combo can absolutely wreck your pattern past 30 yards. That's why I run TrueLock choke tubes. They're a multi-generational, family-owned company that specializes in choke design. In fact, several factory stock chokes are made by TrueLock as the manufacturer's choice. Every single spring, I see those Facebook posts asking what choke and what shell combo to run, and the answers are absolutely all over the place. If you want a data-driven, range day proven setup built for your specific gun, call TrueLock. Their number is 1-800-293-9402. Tell them the specific shotgun you have, and they'll match you with the right choke and shot shell combo. Pattern it once, hunt with confidence all season. I never expected a peaceful hunt to turn tense. One morning in the woods, I ran into a convicted and violent felon that was poaching on our property. Just like that, a calm day completely shifted. Thankfully, I do carry every day, and thankfully I did not have to defend my life. I was able to verbally de-escalate the situation, but here's really what hit me after. Even when you are doing everything legally and you are in the right, you can still face legal consequences if something goes wrong. Up until that moment, I really had never thought about any kind of legal protection for lawful self-defense. But now I made a point to go into USA Go and get USA Go Pro Shield self-defense legal protection. If you are a responsible gun owner, you need to think beyond the gear and the training. Learn more at usago.org and use code REVIVE to save 10% off and get your free welcome gifts. Be prepared legally and responsibly. What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Revive Outdoors podcast. And today we are talking all turkeys again. We are excited to dive into the details. We have Justin here, and then we have Cole. Cole is a turkey hunting expert. He has been hunting for a long time, and he's going to have a ton of just information to share with us. Cole, are you excited to be here?
I am extremely excited to be here, but that was a complete lie. I have never hunted a turkey in my life.
Yep. So the reason we have Cole on here is because we need a beginner to go through these topics. Because what better than to get somebody who's brand new, who has maybe some speculations on what turkey hunting is, and maybe has some ideas of what they think they're going to do or how they think things are going to go, and be able to just really take all these myths and either bust them or either say no, that's fact. And so we're excited today. Coming up, Revive Outdoor Store has officially launched. And so if you haven't jumped on our website, reviveoutdoors.org, checked out all the gear that we have for turkey season, for deer season, be sure to do that. We have truck accessories. We even have, portable toilets on there. Everything that you need to hunt, to camp out of your truck, and to have a good time. We are going to be able to provide that through the store. If there's anything you don't see, you want us to carry, let us know. But this past week, we had our grand-ish opening for turkey season. Had a great turnout, really great time. We had free food. That was the main thing. It was good. We appreciate Josh for knocking that out of the ballpark. And then with the store, we are going to have the grand opening for saddle hunting, deer hunting gear with the Southern Outdoorsman, June 20th. So be sure to mark your calendars and be there for that. That is going to be an incredible time. We're going to have all the big saddle companies there, all the gear on showcase. You can get in trees, you can demo it. It is going to be fun. So June 20th. And then just as podcasts continue to evolve here, if there's anything you want to see, let us know. But today we're diving into the specifics of just what the turkey pros aren't telling you. So, and it's not that they are trying to keep it a secret. Some of them are, but the main thing is once you get to a level of experience with anything, you just forget the basics. You forget what you already know, and that what you need to teach others on a baseline level. And so, if you're joining us and you are brand new to turkey hunting, great. If you are joining us and you are an expert, great. There are things every year that I get into the woods and I'm like, do I really remember what I'm doing? But what we want to accomplish today is reminding you of what's important at the end of the day, what kills turkeys, and what is the biology, the vocalizations, what are the steps to just harvest that turkey and remember how to have a good time. So let's go ahead and get started. Justin, welcome.
Hey man, it's good to be back again. Week 4. Had a great time yesterday coming out to the Grandish opening. Cole, glad to have you here with us.
Yeah,
I'm
thanks.
looking forward to just talking turkey with you, man. Like I said, we're going to get down to the brass tacks of the do's and don'ts for a beginner turkey hunter, and looking forward to just diving in with you and seeing what we can come up with.
Yeah. So, Cole, why don't you give us a background on your hunting experience? And then that way it kind of sets the baseline for everybody here. So, overall hunting and then also turkeys.
I gotcha. So, if I have to think back, the first time I ever went hunting, I was 8 years old. It was some place that was very close to home. My dad took me, and I had a 410 shotgun to hunt deer, and of course, we didn't see
Wow.
anything.
Okay. 410. Big
Yeah,
deer.
yeah, slug. And then a couple of years later, we ended up hunting over on the west side of Alabama, past Tuscaloosa, and shot my first deer. It was she was a little old doe. Shot her out of a shooting house with the 410 slug. So my dad was working on a crossword puzzle, and a big doe came out, and uh, I don't know if I shot the big one or the little one, but as soon as I lined up on it, my dad didn't think I'd shoot the deer. I didn't think I'd pull the trigger, so he jumped out of his seat, and next thing you know, oh my gosh, uh, he's like, "You shot one! You shot one!" She ran about 20 yards and dropped, and we tracked her. And my dad is not a deer hunter, you know. My grandfather was with my brother, and my dad was with me, and he's like, "No, we gotta get it on a four-wheeler and take it back and skin it." Like, he's questioning taking me hunting now because, I actually killed something. I'm so hype, and I'm so excited. We load this thing up, and we get it back to the house, and, uh, you know, uh, my dad just kinda steps back. My grandfather's super excited for me. He goes over and just there's a pool of blood on the four-wheeler. He goes over and smears it all on my face and everything. We skin her out, and might be a little graphic, but yeah, that was my first
Yeah. It's the
actual.
true initiation.
Yeah, but, and then through the years, I was always hunting just the old ways, driving four-wheelers to the stand, climbing up, hoping you see a deer, and I've never killed a big buck, and that's probably why, is hunting that way. Um, and I've shot 2 spikes on accident, thinking they were does, last light, first light, one with a crossbow and one with AR-15, and that's really it. So, I think that's 3 deer in my whole life. And then turkey hunting, okay, we went turkey hunting one time after a spring cleanup day at our farm, and I was sitting in a blind with a shotgun. That was it. That's my turkey knowledge. So yeah,
Were you just waiting on him to show up, or was somebody with you trying to call him? Or
no, I was waiting on them to show up. Didn't know
nice.
about turkey calling, didn't know anything, and you know, actually, this past September, I had just the inclination of, I grew up shooting a recurve bow, and I was like, man, I want to get me a recurve bow again just to do it for fun. And so I got it, got pretty accurate with it, and I was like, maybe I could go hunt with it. And I started looking into everything, and that's how I ended up finding you, trying to figure out how to work wind and thermals and everything. And uh, I got my first saddle set up off of Amazon and got a GoPro because I wanted to film my own hunts. And yeah, didn't punch a tag this season at all. Uh, uh, so that's really it with all my hunting knowledge. I probably hunted more than ever before this year. Learned a lot, but that's why I'm here to learn more.
Yeah, it's exciting. I'm glad you're here. So I just really, so we have youth season coming up. So we're gonna have youth season this coming weekend. We are then rolling into there's a disabled day. So like disabled veterans, I get to participate in that. You have, anybody with disabilities on any level can participate in that. And then you have opening day on Wednesday. So middle of the week, and then we'll get into the weekend. And so turkey season is upon us, and I'm excited. Good luck to all those that are taking the youth. Let's talk about common beginner mistakes. And so Cole, when you asked to come film with me, what did I tell you the most important thing is?
Staying still,
Yes.
not moving.
Yeah,
Right.
that's right. And so I cannot tell you how many people do not realize that staying still means being a statue. Like, I rarely even will move my eyes, like left to right, you know? So being still is the most important thing. And then I'd say the second most important thing is understanding a turkey's vision when it comes to the UV spectrum. And so are you sitting in the sun or are you sitting in the shadows? If you are sitting in the sun and you have leafy camo on, the chances are a lot less likely that that turkey's going to pick you out. However, it can still happen at a higher degree than if you're in the shadows, where whether you're wearing leafy camo or whether you're wearing just standard, clothes. Like I got this technical hoodie on. I'm not a big leafy guy, just because like it makes noise. It's just extra things for the briars that I'm usually going to bust through to get to a turkey to grab on. People love them. I try to go slim and tight clothing and just minimal as possible. And so yeah, the turkey vision is incredibly strong. So I had it explained to me as if you can see like the tip of this ballpoint pen here, just the tip of it, that turkeys can see that move at 100 yards. They can detect that movement.
Good grief.
And so, whether that's an exaggeration or that's accurate, I'm going to go with it's accurate because it's going to mentally prepare me to stay still. Because if I think that they can see from that distance away, I'm not. I mean, that's my mental perception of them. I'm going to sit like a you know, like a statue, like a dead fall log. It is laying there and it is not moving. And so that is probably the number one mistake that I see is guys come out hunting with us, that we do these mentored hunts or women too, and they think that sitting still is that you're sitting on your butt, but you're fidgeting your feet, you're moving your legs back and forth, your head's looking around, you're moving your hand, you're scratching your face. That's a big one is bugs. When it gets warmer,
Oh,
the
Mhm.
yeah.
mosquitoes start to fly. They didn't apply enough bug spray, or they did, and they're up, swatting away. Dude, that turkey's picking you out all day long. And so, Justin, you can probably speak to this. And taking brand new hunters, it's like, man, that is so frustrating.
It is, and I mean, and you know this just as well as I do. When we do our mentored hunts for turkey hunting, when we did, we utilized the hunting blind for that reason
Yep.
because it's very rare that a beginner hunter understands the concept of how still you have to be.
Yep.
And so for that reason, we would use hunting blinds. But if you can see the turkey, he's already seen you. Um, the
Yep.
I was told a long time ago, every uh, deer thinks that every hunter's a rock, and turkey thinks every rock's a hunter. So they're going to find you.
Yep. And that's why I will tell you, if you are starting out, if you're somebody who wants a challenge, go raw. Go sit on a tree, make the mistakes. That's what I did. That's how I'm a very high driven individual. And I want to make it hard, like not as hard as Cole with his recurve bow trying to get a deer this year, like not that hard. But I love to set goals and I love to accomplish them no matter how long it takes or no matter how much I have to learn. But if you're watching this and uh, you are someone that it's going to be hard for you, whether it's health wise or just you have ADD or you can't sit still, get in a blind and set up some decoys. Which you can't do that except for youth, disabled. Then there's the break
That's
all the way
another
until
way.
you get to that 10-day mark. But don't be afraid to use everything that's legal to have success in the beginning, to experience the vocalizations, to experience the gobbles, to experience them coming in, to experience how to make a good shot. And that comes to our next point is where do you aim on a turkey? And so with the shotgun, which everybody should, starting out, Cole, you should start with the shotgun. If you want to go recurve, we'll try to help you. But a shotgun, a lot of people think the head. Well, yeah, you shoot a turkey in the head. Everybody just kind of makes that statement, and a lot of people don't realize that the head bobs back and forth like this. And so if he bobs this way and you've got a tight pattern and you shoot and you were just aiming here, it blows past his head. Where if you pay attention, they hinge on the base of their neck. And so the base of their neck never moves. So the bottom of all that red, white, and blue, that's where you want to aim at a turkey. You actually don't want to aim up at the head because if you got a really tight pattern, he's really close, you're going to miss.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. And with the bow, a whole different ball game. You can use there's two different options out there. You have now you have dead nuts. They have a 2D archery target that you put up. It's kind of like a sign that goes in the yard, like on a stake, like that. What is that material called? Do y'all know?
You were talking about like a 3D foam type.
No,
The 2D.
so the 2D targets, we've made a video on it before, but Dead Nuts targets, you go on there and then they now have uploaded through the Quiver app. It's like Quiver with AR instead of ER. You can download that app and you can see where the vitals are of these turkeys. And what that gives you the opportunity to do on the archery side is to see exactly where the vitals are. You don't have to buy an expensive target. You can buy the 2D, but if you want a 3D archery target, you can go on our website to the Big Shots archery targets, and then you can order the same technology in a 3D target as well. And that's going to show you, hey, you're shooting here. You aimed at that wing when they're broadside. This is where it hit lungs, heart. You aimed straight on, from the front. You shot them from behind. There's all kinds of different angles from archery, but for shotgun, the base of the neck is where you want to go all day. And you want to make sure the fan's not behind it. You want to make sure that the feathers are not. You kind of want them sideways or kind of at a point where they stick up their head. That's why when I'm hunting, if I tell you like, hey, when they come in close, if I go, it's like they're gonna shoot that head straight up, aim at the base of the neck, and you shoot them. So that way it doesn't mess up any feathers. And then when it comes to calling turkeys, this is the big thing that I see a lot of people make mistakes on as beginners is they call one too often and they call two too loud. And Justin, why don't you kind of take us through a start of a day and the vocalizations that someone's going to hear maybe in that first 2 hours, from the time you get out of the truck to where you're going, how does the day really start to wake up?
Right. Well, we talked about last week with Dave Owens mentioned reading the room, and so I similar to that, I kind of start my morning up high, and I just want to kind of listen. If I hear any um, vocalization, gobbles, the hens, they're gonna start early with this soft yelps, tree yelps before they fly down. They're gonna move to their fly down zone or wherever. What exactly is it called? Like their breeding zone or
Yeah, breeding zones,
you know
kind of where they're at. And then, before really even turkeys start to call,
Right.
Usually the first thing you're going to hear is that owl or
So
the birds.
yeah, and that's what I'm like when I read the woods. There's mornings I go and you don't hear a bird. I'm not talking about a turkey. I'm talking about the sparrows. Like it's just dead.
Yeah.
And then there's some spring mornings, everything's singing. And so those are type of like when I say read the room, the woods are alive, and you're gonna hear everything's vocalization.
So you mentioned something, and as a complete beginner, I don't understand it. Why an owl call? You say you hear the owls first early in the morning, and then we have the owl call. Why use an owl call? What does that do for the turkeys?
Yeah, so honestly, I usually go into the woods personally and I don't do anything in the mornings. I just sit there and I'll listen. And you might hear me do an owl call, maybe like 15% of the time. And then most of the time, I've already pre-scouted like what Dave talked about
Yeah.
in our episode last week. So I've already pre-scouted most of these areas because usually I'm taking somebody.
Usually the day before, right?
Yeah, usually the day before, or a few days before, unless, if work doesn't allow the day before. And so I already have an idea of where these turkeys are. And I also know what spots usually tend to be more vocal than others. But I would say, probably 90% of the time I go into my spots and I do not say the first word because I'm wanting to see if an owl starts to communicate. That's usually going to be the very first thing, "Ooh, ooh, 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 ooh." You'll start to hear that calling in the woods. And then you might start to hear crows or you might start to hear other birds. And if that's usually not setting off a gobbler, like he's not gobbling off of that, there's certain things that can be causing that. It could be high predator population. It could be that they've been called to a lot. And so what happened with Kelsey and I on opening day 3 seasons ago, so we went out to a spot. There were two toms that I had found a bunch of scratching. I put out a camera on the road facing one way and a camera facing the other on this logging road. And they came in every single day, like every single day, either right at sunrise or sometime before 10 a.m. And so because she's a brand new hunter and I didn't know what level she could sit still, I set a blind right in the middle of the logging road, which people would think that's insane. Just that would scare the turkeys or whatever. No, we put it down in just a little dip so we could see up to where they would just top, like just topography wise, they would top and it'd be like, uh-oh, we're dead. If it even bothered him. And then the same way on the other side. So I put it down in the low spot, looking up at these little ridge points that were 50 yards at max on both sides of us. And we get in there, owls, go to hooting, hear like a little bit of yelps, and then it kind of goes quiet. And so I just, and I didn't say another word. That was at sunrise when I heard that first yelp. I didn't say another word. And an hour and a half later, she's literally like got her gun. She's kind of leaned into her arm, and she's basically asleep. And all of a sudden, you hear, "Oh, oh!" It's a double gobble. So that let me know it was both the boys coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And so we sat there with nothing. She's like, "This is so boring. How long is this going to take?" Like a kid. And then it's like, okay, we're in the game. Well, then they circled all the way around and went across the property line, and they gobbled probably at 9 a.m. on this one little strut zone they had that was like 3 by 3 feet. They probably gobbled 200 times. And sometimes it was the main one gobbling, sometimes they were both gobbling, sometimes it was a shot gobble situation. And then I was like, okay, we've been sitting here with them gobbling and then us calling just a little bit, scratching the leaves. I'm giving it everything I got. I'm just going to sit here. Like they know we're right here. They know this is a scratching, feeding zone. They're going to come in. And so train comes rolling through and I'm like, well, if this was me, I'm going to get up and I'm going to move to this next point. So when they come, when they come in, I'm a little closer, but we couldn't do that with the blind, And she didn't have the skill set to do that as a brand new hunter. And so we sat still, and thank God we did, because if we would have moved, that's when they started moving. So when the train came in, they moved across the property line right to the ridge point that I would have went to set up on, because I thought they would have been over the next roll. They sat there. We ended up killing them at like 9:30, 10 o'clock. But if you think about that from a timeline perspective, that was 3 hours. 3 hours. And the only vocalization I did for the whole first hour and a half was that one little set of yelps, just to let them know we're there, because we knew they were there.
Man, that's crazy. Like that whole experience. So they used the train coming through because they were already used to it to mask their movement?
I guess I don't know the logic in their little
Yeah.
brains behind that, but that's what happened. And so, but the biggest thing is there, if you think of a scenario where maybe you're not in a blind, maybe you're not comfortable, maybe you're just walking down a logging road and you've pre-scouted and you found the sign, but they're not there. It's like what Timmy talked about in last week's episode. He talked about how he took that youth hunter and he called at this spot where he knew they were, walked down to check the field, starts coming back, and there they are. They didn't make a single noise. That happens a lot. And so what we as hunters, we overcall and we get too loud too quick. And so if you have pre-scouted and you found the sign, or you hopefully have bumped some turkeys off, they're coming back. You've just got to trust your scouting. It's the same thing with deer. You have to trust your scouting. You have to know that you're in the right place and be confident in it and not move. Because you can move 50, 60, 70 yards off, and then they come into that spot, and now you're it's out of range. And so it's like, Justin, I sent you and Garrett over there to that spot that time, dropped a pin. They got slightly off the pin. Turkey comes into where the pin was. It's these little small details of pre-scouting that makes you have to trust. Aside from what you're hearing, you have to trust what you have scouted, because you may hear them fire up and gobble way around the ridge, but they're coming back to that spot because that's where they like to be. And so if you are where they like to be, where you've bumped them up, it doesn't matter the level of vocalizations, how many times you hear it, how many times they're gobbling on the limb, where they're coming from. If you can just sit tight where that you found that scouting, you're going to kill that bird, and 9 times out of 10. And so what a lot of people will do, and what I will do when I'm by myself, is I'll move. And so I would have walked that logging road. I would have called, called, called. This is younger me. Called, owl hoot, crow call, hawk. I'm just trying to get something to gobble and just go nuts, because that's what I want. That's what makes it fun. But what actually killed the turkey in that situation was being quiet, letting them know you're there and being quiet, because you got to think, the more they vocalize, the more they're letting predators know where they're at. And so if you're them and you're trying to survive, you're going to try to be as quiet as possible. And in that situation where most people would have went up and down that logging road, and we've done it before, calling, nothing. All right, let's go to the next property. Meanwhile, an hour and a half into it, that boy started hammering. It didn't stop until he was dead. We got 200 gobbles in an hour and a half after they should have been gobbling, is what people will say.
And that makes sense though, because if you trust your scouting, because in my mind, predators are in that area. If you don't hear a bird just losing their mind, doesn't mean they aren't there. It means that they're playing it safe. And if you overcall, they're like, that isn't normal for the hens in this area, because there's this pack of coyotes that's over here right by our roost. They're waiting on us. That makes sense, dude. Trust the scouting.
Yeah, and then also, so that's a wood situation. Transitioning over to like a field bird, what a lot of people do, they'll set up a blind, or they'll set up on a tree right on the edge of a field because they saw the turkeys there the day before, or, and I'm guilty of this. This is all from experience. And so they'll go set up where they saw the turkeys in a certain corner of say it's a 100-acre field. Well, where do you set up? Well, they were there yesterday, right there in that corner. When I came up here to scout, they'll probably fly down and go to that same exact spot. They will if you shut up. But what happens is you get in there and you get in that little corner and you start, you start going crazy with your calling, and then they come out of the wood line and they're like all excited. Oh, my hens are already here. They're beating me to it. Usually I get to the field and I strut around and then they come in, but they're excited today. Well, they come running in the field and they look over to that corner and they're like, well, that's weird. Nothing's there. I mean, you can put a decoy out if it's legal by that time. If you're hunting, before the 10 days, you can't do that. And so we've had it to where they come out and they're all excited, and then next thing you know, they're like, "There's not a hen there." Well, then they've put two and two together, and they know, hey, there's this hunting pressure, and uh, there's the last time we saw Johnny go to an invisible hen, he got whacked.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful not to educate them in that way as well when you're dealing with fields, because they can see,
And that's
and
a
if they don't
natural,
see something, yeah,
that's like a natural route for the gobblers per se. Like you're saying that if they were there the day before, you see them there, they're coming out strutting their stuff, wanting the hens to come find them. And then when they hear the hens, they aren't there. They aren't going to get within range. They aren't, that makes complete sense, man. I mean, for a new person just thinking about it, it's, you think that's what I'd do. I'd go out, sit in the field, you know, call them up. I saw them there the day before. Man, where are they? Where are they? They already saw you and they're gone. And
yeah.
you never even, you wasted a whole hunt.
Yeah. Now, if you're waiting till the 10-day mark and you have decoys, completely different setup, completely different
Mm-hmm.
situation. So my favorite thing is to do a Jake decoy and a hen decoy, because what you're creating there is you're creating a hen that's supposedly ready to breed. She's calling. She's like, "Hey, come over here." Well, then once the gobblers, they actually see the Jake. And sometimes, like, I've set them up to where the terrain, I've put them down in a low spot so they don't see it soon enough. Now I've learned I need to try to put these decoys still in range, but at a spot where it's visible from where I think they're going to come from. And they're going to see that there's competition there. And dude, they get so mad. They take off. Now, there's been a few times where somebody's used decoys on them before and they're decoy shy. And, I would say that's 10 to 15% of the time. The other 80 to 90%, dude, they are coming in and they're going to whack that Jake. One of them's going to be humping, if there's multiple, they're going to be humping the hen, trying to breed her. And while they're also beating up him, and, usually you shoot one, you can do like this call, and you slap your leg and make it sound like their wings are hitting it, and usually use your hat, and and you'll call them right back in, and they'll start beating up the one you just killed too, and it's a really wild experience. So that's completely different field bird experience than what I typically get into, because I'm usually out there that first 10 days and there's no decoys anymore. And so it gets a lot more strategic when you have those situations, and the best thing to do is just sometimes just not call at all. Let them get to their natural, point. Like usually, like it's a high spot in the field where they can see a long ways. If you got a tree line coming out right to that point, sit on it. But otherwise, you call them, and it's not going to be a good situation if there's no decoys there.
That's some great points. But like you were talking about that why owl call, I think that's more for like people that maybe be hunting public and trying to actually locate their birds or have not um that birds haven't been vocal and they haven't had time to do the scouting. So they'll use those owl calls,
Haven't
those
made
crow
time.
calls. Yeah.
Haven't made time.
Yeah, or those are the weekend warriors that just can get out there.
That's
They'll go
true.
out there and they'll owl hoot, and crow call. Those basically just locators. The same thing if a train goes by and the turkey shot gobbles, they're just using those type of calls to locate a bird. Um, the biggest thing that I took away from your story, and which I think is a big factor in guys who are consistently successful versus people that go out and just get lucky every now and then, is y'all were patient. Patience kills turkeys. There's been so many times in my first 3 to 4 or 5 years of turkey hunting where I would call, the bird would respond, and it's been 30, 45 minutes, it's been an hour, and I stand up to move to try to, okay, this bird's moved off. I need to go find him. I stand up, and he's 70 yards over just a knoll, and I've blown the whole hunt. Had you just been patient, Justin, things could have been different. That would be my number one tip to a
Hmm.
new hunter is call soft, light calling, if no calling at all, just some soft yelps, and then sit still and be patient. If you know the birds are there, be patient.
Yep. Yeah, that's so true. And then, you know, I will say that, let's really dive into calling here for a second, because I want everybody who's watching, listening, from a beginner standpoint, there's this misconception, and even from an experience standpoint, people who kill a lot of birds, everybody has this misconception that you have to be some amazing caller. And I will be the first to tell you, even Timmy last week, he'd be like, I'll be the first to tell you, like, I'm not a good caller. I'm not going to enter in any kind of competition to kill turkey or to call turkeys and try to win it. Like, I'm a turkey killer, like not a turkey caller. And man, I am not good. Like, I'm good enough. It's like I can do what I hear in the woods. I can try to mimic it with my voice. I'm not good with the mouth call. I'm okay with the pot call. I'm okay with the box call. But you hear some of these other guys, and you compare them. So you got the world champions to some of your average turkey hunters. World champions a 10 out of 10. Some of these average turkey hunter guys, they're like a 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10. Like they could probably win a lot of local competitions. And then you have me, who's like maybe a 5 out of 10, but I'm tagging out every single year that I want to. And it has a lot to do with woodsmanship versus the calling, like what we talked about, being patient, not over calling, letting them communicate in their natural environment. And if you compare it to, for those that have deer hunted, if you compare it to that, do you go into the woods and are you just walking around calling like doe bleats and grunts like a madman? No, you've been taught your whole life to sit there and be quiet and stay still and don't say a word. Now, I'll push back. The deer are vocal just as much as turkeys. You just don't hear it. It's very hard to audibly hear that. And then also, like, they're very quiet compared to a turkey. And so I will go in and I will communicate with deer. So don't hear that. But if you think about historically what you've been taught with deer versus what you've been taught or what you will probably be taught with turkey, it's complete opposite ends of the spectrum when it really needs to align. And so for me, your calling ability is, you know, man, I would say 10% compared to 90% needs to be woodsmanship. You need to understand their biology. Why are they going and doing what they're doing? Like Dave shared with us about creek bottoms, Timmy repeated the same thing. It greens up there in the bottoms first. That's where they're going. They have to have water every single day. They go down for water at some point. You find those areas. I personally like those, like what Timmy talked about, the benches and the kind of mid-hill areas that are not at the top, not at the bottom. They're kind of midway down a ridge. I killed two turkeys 2 seasons ago in the same mid ridge spot, right. I mean, almost back to back days, because that's where the acorns collected. That's where they were safe. They could see up, they could see down, but they could also have a little cover. They're on that ridge top. They can be, what's the word I'm looking for? Skylighted.
Yeah.
Skylighted. So if you think through their survival instincts, it makes complete sense what these guys are saying. And so you have to have just a level of woodsmanship to you. But I would say if you put yourself, and this is what I try to do deer hunting, you put yourself in the mind of that gobbler and imagine he's a 6, 7 year old buck. Like he's extremely intelligent, even for his little bitty brain. Just instinctually, he knows how to survive. How would you do that? What would you do to survive if you're him? So you got to understand biology. You got to understand how they communicate as a flock. It's very quiet. Unless you're right on the flock, you're not going to hear them 90% of the time. You got to understand what the drumming and spitting is. You got to understand what a Jake kind of gobble or whatever it's called sounds like. You got to understand what kikis are. You have to understand what these things are, but you don't have to know how to mimic them all. You have to know what an owl sounds like. You have to know what a crow does. And then you can start to learn and improve your calling. Of course, there's always, areas that you want to grow and improve. But the fact that you have to go out there and think that I've got to know how to run a mouth call up and down or a pot call or box call or whatever, honestly, you could go out there and find fresh scratching and sit on it and kill them and never say a word. It's not very fun, but you could do it. You know, the whole point, fun thing about turkey is that you transition from deer, where you've had to sit there and be quiet and not move, to turkey's fun. You can move around, you can talk to them, you can communicate with them if you know, but understanding and knowing all the different vocalizations, and then you learn even more when you get in the woods and you hear them communicate, is just so imperative and so much more important than actually your own personal calling ability.
So just recapping that real quick, I think that's extremely important because coming from just deer hunting, I've relearned the woods in a deer hunting aspect in the past, 6 months doing all my research and incorporating that into turkey hunting. That's a vital piece of information. Being able to go from, you know, you want to position yourself between bedding and their feeding places for deer, right? And then turkey, it's roost to feed to roost. You want to get in between that area. But a question I have, and it's really a beginner question, is like with deer, I really could, especially watching myself back on film, I move a lot when I'm in a saddle, especially basically swinging back and forth. But with turkey, eh, movement wise, I've got to have a blind. The Newcomb hunting blind is definitely going to be within my arsenal that I'm going to be taking with me if I even approach the run and gun method. And I might even just set it up and just leave it in a good setup. But, hearing wise, a turkey's hearing, can you explain to me, like, because with deer, you have to be quiet, right? Because they can hear, they're listening all the time, and their nose is very powerful too. I don't believe you have to work the wind with turkey, do you?
Yeah, so scent control, the only thing that Dave really talked about scent control that I've never really thought about is if you're trying to come in from a certain direction and the deer smell you and they start blowing out, then the turkeys may key in on that predatory, that instinct they have to protect themselves and know that there's something not right.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so, but when it comes to their hearing, deer and turkeys are identical in their ability to pinpoint. And so if you call from a spot and you walk away from it and you come back to it an hour, 45 minutes, 10 minutes, 2 hours sometimes, and you come back in there, you might bump a turkey out because they have heard you call from that spot. They know it's a safe spot, say it's an opening or, they've been in there before, you found the track, so you're just calling from it. A lot of times you're going to go back there if you've walked maybe down a logging road or you've walked down through the woods and they're going to be there. If you can come back into that silent and maybe get, come up where you can just barely peek over and get a shot, you better be careful as you walk back up in there because they're going to be there more times in my experience than not. But when it comes to like, say you need to move, say you've got some turkeys that you think they're hung up. Now you got Justin's situation he shared a second ago where he's thought he's waited long enough. He stands up and there's the turkey 70 yards away. That's pretty common, But I would say that when it comes to moving on turkeys, you have been calling like a turkey for however long you've been sitting there, and then you're going to get up and walk like a human, loud. You're going to be fast. If they hear you running in the leaves, they know that that's not good. Even if you sound like a turkey and you're running, then so what I would try to do is just mimic a turkey, when you do have to move. But if I've got one coming and I need to reposition out of the sun or I need to kind of get set up quick, I'm gonna try to call as little as possible to not get them to pinpoint me in that spot, and I'm gonna try to move as quietly as possible. Now if there's certain days where you just can't, then you've got to realize like like how they scratch and they walk. You need to try to move like that, or jump from bare spot to bare spot, or run across a log, or step on rocks. I mean, anything that I can do to not make noise, I'm going to try to do that.
That's great information.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we were talking about is when you do have an opportunity to watch turkeys, to watch and study their mannerisms, like to see a hen scratch and work, it's not just it's a pattern. It's and so using that knowledge, and so that helps you understand how you need to act if you're going to mimic a turkey.
Yeah, yeah, and I think if you have a spot, especially leading up to turkey season, that you can't get permission to hunt, but you can just go watch and listen, man, I would do that every day that I could. Just because you're going to pick up on so much behavioral and vocalization wise of how a flock actually works to help you understand them better. Even if you had some turkeys in a pen that somebody owns, like even you can learn from them because they're the same animal. Obviously, there's no predator, you know, uh, you know, situation there. But I would try to find some turkeys that are maybe like on a golf course or they're maybe on a farm that nobody's ever allowed to hunt and go ask if you can video or film or just go out there and watch them and set up a blind and sit there and listen. And Lord, if the land, like I had one place where they gave me permission to just go and film, I set up a blind and the landowner was throwing out corn, like cracked corn every day. That was great for me to just be able to go in before season and listen and learn. And there's no greater lab to learn in than actual nature. Now the good part was is they were coming in right to me every morning because they knew the cracked corn was there. But any opportunity you have to learn, even if they're not giving you the opportunity to go and hunt later, like I would take that as a beginner every day of the week. And then the next thing I would do is find people who are good at turkey hunting or maybe bad, because you can learn from them too. But try to find those good people and go hunting with them. Learn from them, even if they won't let you kill anything. Like, hey, can I go and I film, or can I get on your side? Because you got a camera skill. But if you don't have a camera skill, go and just learn everything that they do because you're going to pick up on things that you're like, wow, I've never tried that before. Like the whole thing I told you about killing the turkey and the slapping, with your hat and it's like this fighting purr.
Yeah.
Dude, I can't even do that good. Like literally like and I'm just sitting there, like slapping my hat. I'm not even good at it and it worked. So we were able to double up on turkeys on one spot just because I did that, because I saw somebody who's turkey guided for a living and did that with me and him on a hunt. And because we didn't sequence our shots properly, he shot and I wasn't ready yet. And so he's like, oh, no worries. That turkey's 150 yards. He starts doing this fighting purr and slapping. That turkey comes all the way back and I shoot it.
Good grief.
And so knowing little things like that is so crucial, but you won't have that opportunity unless you're going with somebody who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, the funny story about calling though, I went with my brother-in-law and we kind of split up. We were probably 20 yards off, and I hear this hen yelping, and I'm like, "Gosh, that sounds so bad. I wish he would stop calling. He is like messing this hunt up." And then about 15 minutes later, here comes an actual hen, still yelping, and it was the worst sounding hen I've ever heard, and it was a natural hen.
Yep.
So that just goes, your calling does not have to be pretty and perfect. Like it just has to be the right sequence and timing.
Yeah. Like, we hear all these turkey callers, like these humans make these sounds and we think it's got to sound like that. And I would just tell those that are listening, watching, like, go onto YouTube and try to find hen vocalizations themselves and hear how raspy and it almost sounds like they're choking on something sometimes and just how bad it sounds. It's not smooth. And so that can really build your confidence knowing that it doesn't have to be perfect. Now there's people that I thought they thought that they were ready to call and then they call and I'm like, yeah, don't say a word today. Like that sounds terrible. But then there's people who thought they weren't that good and they were great, good enough to get the job done. So go on and listen to those hen vocalizations versus a person and even try to search maybe bad hen, bad natural hen or something, just something to try to get you into the ball game of finding what people would consider, not a good call.
Right. And, we talked about turkey knowing exactly pinpointing where you're at. When we were in Florida, we had that bird respond to us, but it was across the property line. I think it was like 5 hours later that I just kind of hung out, and that bird came all the way back within 40 yards of. He acknowledged where we were at, so he knew that there was a bird over there, and then he did his thing, and then he finally came back and checked. And so, that goes back to the patience and everything. But Taylor, I want you to kind of dive into a little bit of the biology of a turkey, if you don't mind. Like, explain to a new hunter, like, just and maybe you've touched on some of it already, but give me a little bit about the biology of a turkey.
Yep. So the main things you have to understand. Okay, so we've already covered the vision. We've covered their ability to pinpoint with their hearing, and we've covered the vocalizations for the main point, your main part. I was in Missouri deer hunting 5 years ago or so, and it was in the fall, and all these turkeys came in and they started doing these crazy vocalizations I'd never heard. And, I try to duplicate it, but I usually can't really get it until I've kind of warmed up into the season. But it was like this, like, like this, I don't know, like almost like
It's
a
like a whistle.
whippoorwill type,
Yeah.
like, like it's just this weird vocalization, and I'll hear it, and it's one of those things that if you don't know what it sounds like, you don't know to listen for it. And so that was something that I picked up is like, man, that was 5 years ago, and I thought I knew all these vocalizations, and then I hear that, and I'm like, what is that? And there's certain times that I'll do a vocalization when I'm hunting with somebody who's experienced, and they're like, "What was that? It worked." And I said, "I don't know what it is. I just know I've heard it before, and it put the whole flock at ease, and everybody calmed down, and then they just like moseyed on into that turkey making that noise." And so I don't know, it's not a kiki. I don't know what it is, but there's little things you'll pick up on, and then you're like, "Oh, well, I think I can try to mimic that." And so there's the calling aspect. I would say, from a biology standpoint, is their vocal library. You can go on. There's a gentleman, and I can't remember the name of it, but there's a study where he spent time with this turkey flock for years and learned every single vocalization that they make. And I can't remember if he could mimic it or if he just knew what it was and what they were communicating. But he spent so much time that he understood exactly what they were talking about when. And he broke it down into so many different vocalizations, and it really wasn't a lot. And so I'll usually before season, I'll go back and I'll find that study and I'll really start to listen. And then, from a breeding standpoint, what we are doing into the spring is we are going into their breeding season. So what is taking place is you have the gobbler, the tom, the male turkey, that he is gobbling and saying, I'm over here. And the natural thing that takes place in nature is the hen says, okay, I'm on the way. And she goes to him. And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to do the opposite of what natural biology is a lot of time. And you're trying to pull him to you, which it's possible. It's definitely possible. It's just you have to know when to do it and how to do it. So that's why scouting and finding these breeding areas and scouting and finding these strut zones or where they like a specific point in a field is so it's going to lead to so much more success because you're letting them naturally do what they are going to do, which is the hens come to the toms. And then in that breeding, the competition, you'll see turkeys, and I would say that not a lot of people have seen this take place, but you'll have two toms or two jakes, and they'll run in circles for hours, like this one little 1 to 2 foot circle over and over and over and over, and it's some kind of like asserting the dominance, like they're
Hmm.
trying to establish the pecking order. So you'll usually see it in February and into March. And they'll run in circles. They'll also tie their necks around each other and try to push each other over, kind of like giraffes will sling their necks and hit each other and try to establish dominance. They'll try to wrap that. So they're just trying to establish who's the boss, Tom, and then who's the next and who's the one after that. And this is very evident when you have more than one turkey come in. You'll know who's the boss. The boss will usually be strutting. The other one will be just the looker, is what they
Yeah.
call it. And it's kind of like, and if the looker or the subordinate Tom ever tries to strut, the other one will come out of strut and start trying to flog him or, attack him and tell him to
Right.
stop. And then you have sometimes where they're all maybe brothers. They came out of the same hatch and they'll all strut together and they're all friendly, but let another Tom come in No, 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 can't do that. And so, and then you have the jakes. So the jakes are always subordinate, and I've seen a pack of jakes scare away one single tom, or maybe two toms. They don't want to fight, because there's 9 or 10 jakes. But usually, if you've got a jake hanging out and a tom sees it and it's with the hen, that's like what we talked about with the decoy setup being so strategic and so successful, is that competition gets in. You'll see their head get red, and they'll just come in mad. And so that leads to another point of biology is the coloration of their head. And so red usually means really angry, or overly excited. And then white is usually calm and chill and comfortable. And then blue's just mixed in there. But there's a lot of theories on the coloration of the head. But what I have personally noticed is that real dark, bright red is either going to be like a really horny Jake that's like ready to breed, but don't really know. It's kind of like if you think of a young teenager that's like wanting to fight everybody and wanting to prove himself. That's kind of like the red that you see in the Jakes, and then the younger Toms. And then when you see a really red head and a big, more mature Tom, that's when they're usually really, really mad,
Mhm.
that somebody's in their territory or doing something. So you'll hear me, like I'll be out there, and if I've got a tom that's hung up, especially if they're by themselves, and I'm sitting there, I'll go, "Ow!" And it's not even a good gobble. It actually sounds more like a Jake gobble, or a Jake. It's what a lot of people say. You'll hear these Jakes kind of
It's like a half gobble.
make this vocalization when other toms are gobbling and they're close to them, and because I'm creating that competition, and I've seen that so many times where it's like I do that, oh, and I usually try to do it in the middle of his gobble if he's gobbling, or I try to do it at some point, like if I can see him, especially. I definitely don't do it while he's actively alert and looking. I try to do it where his fan kind of turns away from me, or he can't see me. He's blocked by his own body, or he's in the middle of a gobble. That way, it's like I'm cutting him off and I'm disrespecting him. And then he's like, oh, heck no, you did not just do that to me. It's like a gang member on their street corner.
Yeah.
Like you don't come over here to my street and try to take my ladies. And, you're just trying to biologically overcome natural tendencies in some way by building competition or by trying to think like the hen. Sometimes what I've done is I've um, got up and moved 30 or 40 yards further down to make it sound like I'm leaving, but then I have a path that I can take that's quiet to get back up. So I'll purposely be loud, kind of walking away, and even project my yelp down into a bottom, and then kind of come back because I know he's going to have to come that direction. And then I'm still sitting back at the back of the hill. If it's a little different, you got two people because you can leave the shooter in front of you and then you can back down. But yeah, that's is from a biology standpoint. Um, some things you need to key in on, and then other, from scouting standpoint, the sign. You're going to see all these little oval shaped areas with the grass or the leaves turned up where there's maybe acorns or there's worms or there's some kind of grub. And then you're going to see, like on roads, you're going to see their wingtips where they're strutting. They call it drag lines or drag marks. It'll be these like little lines. Like if you took this paper clip right here and you just drug it down, or a little twig and you just drug it down kind of parallel, and it's where they're just dragging their wingtips and they're moving along in that dirt. You see a bunch of gobbler tracks kind of all on top of each other. It's where he's strutting, and as the hens feed around him, he's looking,
Mhm.
at different directions at them. And then, when it comes to their droppings, their droppings, a lot of people will say that the shape of a dropping from a tom is different than a hen, kind of like bucks and does. I personally, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know what's fact and what's fiction on that. But if you can just find droppings somewhere, a lot of times you'll see where they've scratched and it's bare, and then there's a dropping either on that scratching or there's a dropping in that oval shaped area. You're just looking for anything that cues you in on activity that's fresh.
Yeah. So, you mentioned a couple things about doing scouting and stuff. But so, as a new turkey hunter, and Cole, you may even have this question, but like, so in deer, early season, you can pattern a deer using trail cams and stuff like that. Is trail cams as efficient when it comes to turkey hunting as far as patterning a deer or scouting? your property utilizing trail cameras? Is that something that, I mean, if you were to explain to a new hunter, like, that may not have the time to put boots on the ground, and they have time to put cameras out and kind of watch those and see if the turkeys are moving through, is that something you would utilize to turkey hunt?
Yeah, I use cameras year round for a lot of different things, but like right now my cameras are still kind of out there for the deer. I haven't had a chance to move them yet or made the time to move them. It's kind of because I already know where all the turkeys are, on a lot of these properties. If I was going somewhere new, if I find sign, I don't really need a camera. But if you're wanting to learn more about turkeys, I would say put a solar panel and put it on video mode and let it just collect. Like go to find a scratching spot, go find a strut zone, go find a logging road where you see a ton of just drag marks, you see a ton of prints, you see water in a water puddle in the middle of it and all these droppings. Go put a camera there and just use it to learn. But then, I mean, honestly, if they're coming in the same spot every single day on that camera, you better go hunt there because that's how Kelsey and I killed that double. Is every single day by 10 a.m. at the latest, those two toms are coming in there.
Right, and you saw that on trail cameras.
Yep,
Yep.
that's right. And
S
so, like right now, I don't have a camera set up in that specific spot, but I know they're probably there scratching. They do every year. But I got a tom on another camera close by there the other day. Somebody told me they saw a turkey near there the other day. So, it's like just further confirmation they're there. But if you give me a new property and I don't really know where to go, I'm going to ask the landowner, the person who's given me permission, like, hey, where have you seen turkeys?
Right.
Or like I was driving by and I saw them out in the field, and so that field spot, I can just go out there in the field and kind of try to find these little funnels of where they're coming in and out of the woods. But really leaning on the landowner is a big deal. If you have a lease, a lot of leases are logging tree, leases. So you got logging roads, you're looking for tracks. But yeah, the trail cameras are important.
Right, and that goes back to what Dave talked about last week with most recent information. Just having that camera, if you're planning on going and you see your flocks over on the north side of the property, that may be a good place to. Okay, I'm going to start over there. That's where they were. That's where they roosted. I got them on camera. It's a good starting point. So most recent information.
Just a question when it comes to scouting. So again, all I know is deer. So when I'm looking for their sign, I'm looking for scrapes, and a scrape line could be, half a mile long of their, you know, radius, and they could be going 3 or 4 miles in this area. What's a turkey's radius off their roost?
Yep. So a turkey's radius is going to be dependent on the dominance of that turkey. And so it's very similar to these young bucks you'll see in these studies that travel 20 something miles, 50 miles, like crazy mileage. If they're a subordinate tom, but that wants to breed, they're going to get bumped off of these areas a lot. So you're going to have breeding zones in your area where the turkeys are going to know to go to year after year. They know the general area of where hens are going to be. They're going to go meet up there. They learned it as colts. They learned it as jakes, but they're going to be pushed away a lot of times by these dominant toms, which is a great thing because I don't know if inbreeding's a thing in the turkey world.
I don't know. I know it is in deer. You can kind of get to that if you don't
Yeah,
have
it's a big
population
thing.
control.
Yeah, like I know that does will push their spikes
I don't let
away
them
on
get over 2
purpose.
years old, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So, so like in deer hunting, you have these like young bucks that they'll travel crazy numbers. They put these GPS things on them and they travel 25 miles or 100 miles or they cross this river 42 times. It's because they're a subordinate deer. They don't have the dominance in the area and they're getting pushed. And so very similar to deer, you're going to have turkeys. So turkeys that are the same way. So you have these dominant toms in an area, like I talked about earlier, how the dominant one will come in, or if they're brothers, they'll all strut. But those turkeys will push out any other turkey that they don't know or like, whether it be Jake's or whether it be another younger tom. I've had it where 6 or 7 toms are strutting out in the field, and this one tom's just sitting over in the tree line because he got his butt whooped a few weeks ago, probably when I wasn't there, and he's just not coming in. And so what happens is if there's not enough hens to go around and breed, or if that turkey's just like, man, forget this, I'm going somewhere else, they just start traveling and listening for those vocalizations. And, that's why you might have one that just in the middle of a day, you're walking through a spot that maybe he's never even had a turkey. And you're like, you strike it up and you're like, dang, I didn't know turkey's here. And he comes walking right to your gun barrel. It's because he's just looking to breed. Same thing with hens. If there's not enough toms to go around, or there's too many hens, and hens have a pecking order just like the toms do. And so the hens will be pushed around. And so you'll, like Justin was talking about, that hen that was going crazy. It sounded terrible. I had a hen like that came where I've never seen turkeys before. I'm walking to where turkeys are. It's a long walk to how I got to get there without busting them. But as I'm walking there, I think somebody's poaching. Like I hear this turkey coming, and I'm like, oh gosh. I sit down. I was like, well, maybe she's got a tom with her or something. She pops up, and she was just looking. Maybe she got busted up. She wasn't kikiing, but maybe she got busted up, or maybe she was just looking to be bred. And she's just on a mission to be bred, and they will do that. I mean, like I told you earlier, the biology is that the hens go to the toms. So if they can hear you yelping, they might think that there's a tom with those yelping hens and they're trying to breed. And it might be a subordinate hen or subordinate tom in that flock, but they get over to this other flock and they might be the top dog.
See, that's different than deer. That's probably one of the only key aspects that I've even caught in this conversation is that the hens actually search out the toms.
Yeah,
Right.
does do that too.
Really?
Yeah.
So does and estrus will.
Yeah, it's not what I would say is common. Usually they kind of go to the same meetup spot, which I don't put GPS collars on deer and know for facts, exact science that this is what they do every time. I think a little bit of both is happening.
Yeah.
Now, I have definitely seen a buck corral a doe and not let her go a direction so he can corral her back to his bedroom to specifically breed in that area where he knows he can protect his space.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's just it's knowing if you have turkeys in a spot that's a breeding zone and you kill those turkeys, you can keep killing turkeys there. Now, like we talked about last week where the guy came in and he killed his limit maybe over, another guy came in, his friend, and killed their limit maybe over, their sons, their wives. They just decimated a small little 20 acre piece. Like, don't do that. But year after year, those spots, as long as the population isn't decimated, they're going to produce year after year because these turkeys know these breeding zones.
Yeah, that's a key piece of information too. Conservation is king, right? You don't want to kill your stock. I mean, I understand.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Well, really, I think for a beginner, it's having the right gear for me to actually get the job done, especially because I'm more on the camera side of things. I know I cannot sit at the base of a tree with my tripod, with my camera, and get good shots of if you were hunting, if Justin was hunting, without some kind of cover, man. I know that we talked about lines and being in the base of a field and everything. Eventually, when you can put out decoys, that works. But how do I do that now?
Yeah. So let me just clarify the question. Are you asking like as a hunter, like maybe somebody who's watching, are you asking like what gear that I would suggest that they need?
Yes, new hunters, how do I kill a turkey? And what gear do I need to get?
Yeah. So I do this for beginners and experts just because like, you kind of get stuck in your ways and there's things that you need to upgrade and you just kind of stick with what you got. And that bug gets sore a little too much because your pad is 20 years old or whatever. You need a new turkey vest and technology's improved. So the foam's better, but so let's just talk about like everything that I've put in the store from a turkey hunting aspect. So everything that is in that store, I have personally used. I know it works. The people behind the companies are good people. And they're going to stand behind their product, but they make a good product. And so when you are a brand new hunter and you're like, hey, what do I buy? Well, first a shotgun, get a 12 gauge is what I would tell everybody. And then you've got to get a choke set up, which True Lock chokes. You give them a call. You can use code REVIVE. They'll give you 10% off. Call them and say, hey, this is the gun that I'm wanting to do. And then I went and bought these, turkey shells, some kind of specific turkey shell that you bought. And, I would say like, if I don't even own a shotgun yet, this is a 12 gauge, I'm personally going to try to find a 3.5 inch just because like I can use anything shorter than that shell
Hmm.
wise. But for me, I run the same, if I'm running my 12 gauge, it's a Remington 870. It's got the True Lock 660 choke. It's the turkey one, so it's really long. And it's not a short barrel. It doesn't have like the pistol grip on it. It kicks like a mule. So I've got all these upgrades to help it not feel as bad. And then I'm shooting Federal TSS number nines, 3.5 inch. So it is like if I wanted to kill a turkey at 100 yards, I could do it. That's not what any turkey person is going to tell you. The whole goal is to get them in close. But I have a gun that is capable of that. So if we get in a situation mainly on these mentored hunts, I know that if that turkey's at 60 yards, it's going to die. If I've been fighting a bird for 3 hours, 4 or 5 hours, and that mentor or that mentee finally gets that opening of that shot, and I range it and I see it's at 75 yards, hey, put it at the base of the neck and pull the trigger, and we can get it. So that's a little bit different than what I would teach people. So what I personally run now is a Rossi 410. It's got a True Lock choke in it for TSS number nines, a 3 inch in a 410. And so that's just, it challenges me a little bit more. The gun is exceptionally lightweight, so I don't have to carry something heavy anymore. So I have pretty weak grip strength in my right hand from the military injury. And so, like long term carrying, I'm constantly swapping hands. So if I've got a Nukem blind in one side and a shotgun in the other, I don't need something heavy because I'm constantly having to rotate that hand because of the grip strength. So I'm starting with the shotgun. The next thing I'm going to buy or the same thing, what I'm going to buy at the same time as a call. And so I was the crazy man that went with the mouth call. So if you're somebody, you're like, I'm bound and determined, which I would challenge you. Like if you are a driven person, like go with the mouth call. We have these 3 packs. And so we have like the Hunting Public, we have a Woodhaven Ninja, we have Woodhaven this and that. So and we have 4 different 3 packs we cover, and they have V cut, they have Batwing, and then they have a Ghost cut. And the reason I would say, hey, go buy these specific turkey calls is because everybody's mouth and how they move air through it and how they apply pressure with their tongue, the shape of their mouth is going to be different. And you may not be able to run a Ghost call, but you may be able to run a V cut or a Batwing, and you're just going to learn how to apply pressure the right way. The only mouth call that I can run, I don't even know what it's called, but instead of it coming to a V cut like or a bat wing where it's like that really sharp point, it kind of comes out and does like a little square. And that's what I'm really good at using, and I can't really use anything else. And then I would say a 2 reed versus a 3 reed. So it's the amount of latex layers in that mouth call. You would want to go with the 2 reed. It's going to be easier to run. And then if you're somebody with a strong gag reflex, you can go with the mini, like the mini Venom that we have on the website. And then we have another mini. If you just search mini and mouth call, it should pop right up. And then if you're not wanting to do a mouth call, I would say get a pot call. My favorite currently is the Ninja Slate from Woodhaven. It's like a chalkboard kind of material. It comes with 2 strikers. I can sound like 2 different hens. I can go high volume. I can go low volume. I can get a lot of different calls out of that. And then my locator calls, if I had to choose owl, hawk, or crow, I'm going with an owl every day of the week. And then on the box call, we have the cherry hen call that Woodhaven makes, which I only have that call in by itself because that's the only call I got for us at the store is because it works and it does a really good job. And so that's on the calling side. That's kind of where I'm at. If I'm buying brand new, I'm getting the shotgun set up and I'm getting one of those calls. It's really a personal preference which one you want to start with first. I like mouth call, which I personally use my vocals most of the time, just my natural voice. Um, I like it because it's hands free. Another option is you can buy these shotgun mounts and push a little button and you can do that, but those aren't very popular anymore. And but I told you about that guy last week that I talked about it, and he kills turkeys every year with it. But And then on the vest would be a big investment that I would be looking to make. My personal is the hybrid pack, just because I'm a minimalist at heart. It has a really, really good butt pad. It has really good back padding. So when you sit against the tree, I can use that in deer season as well. And it's got basically a bino harness with extra turkey calls and stuff in it, or with extra like spots for turkey calls in it. But you can also use it as a deer side, so you can take off the back with the butt pad and the back pads, and you can make it just a regular bino harness. So me, for the price that is, at like $169.99, I think, like, you're getting a bino harness and you're getting a turkey vest in one, so you can use them in deer and turkey season. And if you are not someone who carries binoculars when you turkey hunt, you better become one, because that is one thing that I underestimated, but it has actually helped kill a lot of turkeys, is having those binoculars. Because when they're through like privet hedge or something, you may not think they're there. You put binoculars up and you're like, good Lord, I can see that red, white, and blue head, or I can see that black wing, you know, and he's only 60 yards away. I thought they were gone. They're just sitting there chilling, in the shade, not doing anything. I thought they walked around the bend and were gone. And, if I wouldn't have known, we wouldn't have killed the turkey, because I came around a big oak tree, throw my binoculars up and like, oh gosh, they're right there. Then I can put the mentee up and like, hey, shoot.
Hmm.
But and then from like what you wear clothing wise, mossy oak bottomland is going to be always a popular thing in the South. Lord, there's even a song about it now. And but I wear Cryptek camo, and I wear the black Skyfall. But the biggest thing is, no matter what you have, like, go with, we have Cryptek available. We have Bottomland in the store. What we have in the store is from Grounded Brand, great Christian company, great people. But I have their technical hoodie, which is what I'm wearing today, and underneath this jacket, because it has a built-in face mask. I can wear it kind of like normal everyday wear to work. And then if I want to go hunt before or after, I can still do that. It has a face mask built into it, so I can throw it over my head, throw the hood up if I want to do that as well. It has these little, like thumb loops where you can hold it up so it doesn't fall down and expose your skin. Then you can put gloves on. It has a kangaroo pouch, has a breast pocket, it's quarter zip. It's just kind of like my style. And then we also have the leafy jackets. Again, what I talked about leafy wise was the shadowing. A lot of people don't realize a turkey's vision. We talked about that already, but the shadowing effect of the leafy camo is what really makes it what it is. And so I would say, if you don't mind the extra stuff, like you're not weird like I am, go with the leafy. And if you are weird like I am, go with the technical hoodie. And then on the blind, the Newcomb blind, the reason we have that in the store is because it's a mobile hunting blind. Like, it is made to run and gun. I've used it for filming turkeys and deer, hunting turkeys and deer, hunting coyotes. It's just a really affordable price blind that gets the job done in multiple scenarios. And so it's just two little triangle pieces that come down. So it's like a portion of a blind, and a lot of people think it's not enough. But dude, there are so many videos after videos, and I have experience after experience using them, and they are amazing, like the best product ever. And so it's like, don't just hunt them, nuke them. That's the
Yeah,
that's the
that's our
saying.
slogan.
And because I mean, you are definitely going to get into them. So that's all the gear that we carry. And the reason I carry that, because it's stuff I have used and I believe in. And it's like, if you wanted to walk in and go from zero to hero, you have everything in our store that we have to offer, and online. We got the gloves, we got the face mask as well. I would tell you, with gloves, at least have the thumb and the finger cut out. So we have a pair of gloves that's just the thumb and the finger, and then we have a pair of gloves that has all the fingers, tips cut out of it. And just because you want that ability to feel, especially like if you need to turn that safety off real slow, use two fingers. You're filling with both of them to turn it off real quiet to be able to get on that turkey. So that's all I have to say about gear. Justin, do you have anything to add?
Well, it's something I just always would tell a beginner hunter, to go and buy a pot call, a slate call, and diaphragm calls,
Mm-hmm.
and practice all of them, and use the one that you're most comfortable with. I know that may be a little bit of budget up front, but at the end of the day, you're going to find what works best for you. And instead of just saying, "Hey, you got to use a diaphragm mouth call," and you go learn it, and well, if they get frustrated and struggle with that, it may help them lose some confidence. But if you go find, hey, the box call, I can mimic the turkey. I feel comfortable with it. Yes, it is a little more, you got to use both hands, all that stuff, but that's something that's going to increase your confidence. And confidence is everything when you're going to the woods.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. If you go out there and you're scared to call, um, you're not willing to make mistakes, then turkey hunting's not going to be fun. You got to get out there and just try it and give it your best, and go with the people who are experienced to gain that level of experience. But just get out there and do it. If you know you got turkeys on a property, just go give it a try. And I can tell you that first turkey I killed, I lost my mind when I tagged him, because it was like, I did this. It was
Right.
so much fun.
You got hooked, didn't you?
Yeah, bad.
Man, talking about, making mistakes and honestly gaining confidence. I was watching a video the other day, and it was Dave Owens, and he had these two gobblers at the edge of this tree line across from a cutover, like a freshly cut over section of property. And there's this big pile of timber just all bunched up in the middle. And he's sitting on the edge of this tree line, and he's calling them. He sees them coming in. And as soon as they go behind this brush pile, he gets his gun. He takes off. He's semi running, semi trying to be quiet, but he knows the turkey can't see him. And I'm like, can these turkeys not hear him right now?
Yeah, I guarantee you the wind was blowing into his face or something. I watched that exact video the other day of him in the cutover with the big brush pile pushed to
Yeah.
the middle. And that's things that you just can't convey on video. Is yes, they could have hear him if the wind's not blowing strong enough and if the ground's not dirt.
Yeah.
And so those are things you just in the moment, you have to have the woodsmanship to know.
Oh yeah, and the confidence.
Yes.
Man, he got up on him, and like he had to turn on his camera on the end of his gun and everything, and he got it up. I'm serious. He stood up, and as soon as it was facing away from him, he got on his head, and boom, that turkey was down. And I'm sitting there, I'm hyped up because I just watched this, adrenaline rush of a video, and it's the confidence, man. And it's from the years of experience. And that's why I'm wanting to get into it and get into it with the right people. And even if I go with the wrong people, it's hearing the gobbling. I've never heard a turkey gobble in the woods, man. Very exciting stuff, man.
Yep, it is.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because that kind of, as a new hunter, you go on YouTube and you're excited and you see Dave Owens and you have these expectations. He's been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
And so if you go into the woods with those same expectations, you're going to get let down time and time again. And I want to bring it to the next part of being content and confinement in the woods, of like understanding that, yes, killing a turkey is the ultimate goal, but understanding and learning every time that you go, getting something, taking a nugget of knowledge each and every time you go to the woods and learning is so much more valuable than killing a turkey and just going out there and getting lucky and not learning anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think last year was probably my most enjoyable season compared to the previous two before that. And I'm somebody who, coming off of the 4 or 5 years prior to that, I tagged, 4 turkeys in 5 days in Alabama. Like, I want to get done so I could go help mentor other people. And then it's like always like kind of perfect timing for when the decoys come back. Once they made that rule. And this past year, I think I killed only 1 turkey. And I took a lot of people on mentored hunts still. Didn't have near the success as what we typically do. We lost some good properties, it's just part of it. But it was just really enjoyable because I was able to sit back and I'm going to give it my all to kill a turkey in the time that we're given to be there, right? But the definition of success, I and my worth are not going to be determined by the killing of a turkey, and I'm not going to let the mentee's definition of a successful hunt be determined by a dead turkey. That's just a bonus to it, like you said. And I think so many times, like, people go with the expectation of, like, the only way I'm going to be happy today is if I leave the woods with a turkey in my hand. And don't get me wrong, like, I'm that guy. At the same time, I want to kill a turkey. And, but I would just say it's like, man, if I can go into the woods in the allotted time that I'm able to be there, and I can walk away and say that I gave it my absolute all to kill the turkey. Maybe made some mistakes, maybe sat back and, it's like, you know, just learned more vocalizations to make me better for next time. Or, I bumped a whole flock off of a ridge and I didn't have time to finish it. Or like I have a turkey, there's a specific spot. I drove by it this morning on the way to do this construction job we're working on. And on the way back, I looked for the turkey, around that area,
Mhm.
but he's deep back in these woods. And I had to leave him last year. I had a dead stop at 10 o'clock and I finally got him fired up and gobbling. And I had to be at my truck leaving at 10. He starts hammering at like 9 a.m. and he's deep, deep off into the woods. Like he's at least 400 yards. And I'm like, dang it, like I've got to go. By the time he gets here, I won't have enough time to kill him, enjoy that moment,
Right.
get back to my truck. So I literally decided. I left and I went straight back the opposite direction, walked all the way around the back edge of that property to get to my truck so I wouldn't bother him. So this year I can go in. I know I've learned where all the scratching was. I've learned where he wanted to be. I learned where he was coming from. I can get in there and I can kill him this year. And so you got to play the long game. It's the same thing I do with deer, but it doesn't mean that I didn't have a great morning. I
Right.
mean, I went in there, sunrise, beautiful day, birds chirping, watching squirrels, have a coyote go by, don't get a shot at. That was that stunk. But like see some deer, and then like I'm just sitting there like basically falling asleep on the tree, just kind of being patient because I know I'm in the right spot. And then I hear him gobbling and he's coming. And I look down like, dang, I don't have time. But I wasn't all like, oh man, I didn't kill a turkey today, wasted all this time. Like, no, it's just you got to have that perspective to like, I'm going to enjoy myself, learn, give it everything I have, but my happiness isn't going to be determined by a turkey in my hand at the end of the day.
Right. And you talked about enjoying the moment. Like, if you have to rush the process, to me, it's not even worth it. Because it's all about memories and slowing down. I think Dave talked about that at the end of, if you watch any of his episodes, they smoke a victory cigar after he kills a turkey. And I think that to help him just kind of slow down and enjoy the moment and be immersed in the moment of the harvest. And um, I don't smoke necessarily, but the process of just stopping.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a successful harvest, or even if you don't, just sit next to a tree and just kind of just take it in.
Yeah.
The smells, the sounds. If you've harvested a bird, just lay it at your feet. Thank the Lord that you have that opportunity. You were so vivid when we started this conversation about your memories hunting with your dad. That's what lasts. It's not the deer on the wall. It's not the turkeys that you throw in the back of the truck. It's the memories that we've made with family and friends and accountability. And it's just, that's what, to me, being outdoors is about making memories with your kids, with your family, with your buddies. All this other stuff will never be worth anything at the end. But when you're laying there with your buddy at the end of the line at the world, you're gonna have those memories.
Yep. Yeah. And I would just say, like, as we kind of wrap this up, and I would just say, as we wrap this up, youth season starts tomorrow. And I would just say to all the dads, the uncles, the friends that are taking kids tomorrow, I've taken a lot of grown kids, a lot of adults on these mentored hunts. And I would just say, like, if they make mistakes, you call in the Tom, the gobbler, perfect to their feet, and they miss. And then maybe they just start shooting over and over and run out of shells and they don't tag that turkey or they don't do that right thing or they don't sit still. Man, just be grateful that you're there and don't get angry. Don't let anger ruin such a special opportunity and a special moment to spend time with your loved ones, with your friends, with your family. It's very easy to get frustrated, especially when you're experienced and the person's not, and you know what to do and you think you've communicated well enough to tell them what to do, and then they don't have the success, they don't make the good shot. I had an experience where I took somebody who's been hunting a long, long time, and they were trying to do the chase in 49, kill a turkey in every state, and they came in to do Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect setup, and they missed the turkey. Thankfully, we bumped out and killed them in another spot within 5 minutes, knowing kind of where they would flush out to.
Right.
But I could have let that, oh man, like, God, get mad at him, get angry at him, whether it's a kid or an adult, ruin it. No, it's okay. Let's recollect ourselves. In that moment, the day, the success wouldn't have been defined by anger, by frustration. That memory wouldn't be remembered as that time, my dad whacked me in the back of the head, or, like talked to me like I was a dog because I missed a turkey at 8 years old or whatever. The memory would be remembered by joy, by, excitement, by, hey man, I've missed them too. It's okay. Like, kids will probably cry. Grown adults might even cry. But like in that situation, it was a perfect example of what should take place. That we transitioned immediately to where they probably were going to flush to. We came around the corner, he kills the turkey 5 minutes later. And if we would have let the frustration root in, the anger, we start pointing fingers at each other, whatever people, tend to do, we've all done it. If we would have let that define the moment, he would have never got his bird.
Yeah.
He would have never got that turkey.
And the truth is, coming from a complete beginner, and even after 10 years of not deer hunting, complete beginner in that aspect. And really for all the beginners out there, don't be scared to try, right? Coming from barely any background, the truth is that the experiences that we have in the outdoors with, by myself right now, learning this or learning it with other people, this isn't just about me. This is about later down the road, my children, teaching them, their children, and the importance of the experiences that God is providing us on, honestly, a supernatural level that we are wired to feel and to share with everyone, and being able to share God's love through it. Because you're gonna make mistakes. I didn't get a deer this year, and I wounded a deer and couldn't find it. One of the saddest days that I've ever had in the woods, but it led me here. It led me to a good group of guys who helped me work through it and get better. And so just don't be afraid to try. Don't be afraid to learn. Mess up. That's how you learn. And I really thank y'all for just, opening up, because of course, y'all have families and y'all spend some time in the woods and everything, but that's the truth. It's all about the experience and the memories that you'll be able to share, because you're right. The deer on the wall probably won't last, your great grandchildren. The turkey mounts, they might get sold at a yard sale down the road. But those memories and those experiences, they do feel supernatural because God has provided you with them. And those don't go away.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. Well, the next time that we record a podcast, it will be turkey season.
Yes.
We will be
Yes,
hunting
sir.
turkeys. I don't even know if I'm going to show up that Friday
Yeah.
to record the podcast. But Justin, why don't you pray us out? Pray for everybody's season, safety, good luck, all the things.
Absolutely. Heavenly Father, God, thank you so much for who you are, first and foremost, Father. Thank you for your son, Jesus. God, I just pray that you would just bless everybody that's either watching or listening to this podcast, Father God, that they would have the best season that they've ever had, whether that be successful in harvesting a turkey or successful in just learning new things and enjoying your creation, Father God. I just pray for everyone's safety as they go out and they do life, Father, and they hunt these beautiful animals that you've provided, Father God. And I just pray that you would just keep everyone safe, Father. We just thank you so much for all your many blessings, Lord. I pray that you watch over us and guide us as we go. In your son's name we pray, amen.
Amen. Amen. Hey, thank you all for watching. I want you to remember that God can revive your life through the outdoors so you can make a positive and an eternal impact right where you're at. See you next time.